I'm working on staining the living room floor the Monday before Thanksgiving, and I already have the turkey in the oven. Who says you can't do two things at once? I want to simplify Thanksgiving dinner this year. I want to make some things ahead of time that will not affect the quality, and I want to make some recipes that will not disappoint the family, but will make it easier on myself. I have a lot of arthritis in my thumbs and in my wrists, and it makes it hard for me to lift things, stir things, and debone things. So I went ahead and stuck the turkey in the oven. I'm going to be deboning that, sticking it in the freezer for a few days, and then heating it up on Thanksgiving. And it will taste just like it just came out of the oven and got deboned. But we won't have to wait on me to do that like we've done in the past. I have a couple of kids that always say, Mom, you spend so much time in the kitchen that we don't get to see you when we're there. So if I make some of this stuff easier on myself and we still have a great dinner, I can spend more time with my family. Isn't that what we want as cooks, is to see our family anyway? So I'm going to share some slow cooker and some easy tips today for things that maybe you can use for Thanksgiving this year. I hope you enjoy this video. This next recipe is a crock pot stuffing recipe. It hardly takes any ingredients. It hardly takes any time to throw it together. And you can come out with fresh homemade stuffing in your crock pot in about an hour and 15 minutes. Now, I'm going to make this on Thanksgiving morning, but I'm going to share the recipe with you now so you can do it too. If you have enough slow cookers, this is another great one that's really easy and frugal, and you can throw it together on the day of Thanksgiving. Now, we're going to take a fourth of a cup or one stick of butter, 2 cups of celery. I have mine grown from the garden. A cup of chopped onion. I have that also grown from the garden. And we're going to saute that in a skillet. And then we are going to add 1/2 pound of whatever type of sausage you want, whether it's pork sausage, breakfast sausage, Italian sausage. Then we're going to throw it all in the crock pot with 1 cup I have of turkey broth. You can use chicken stock or whatever you have. And then we're going to add in 2 teaspoons of sage, a teaspoon of crushed rosemary, and then we're going to add in 10 cups of cubed dried bread. And we will have our own homemade stuffing in a crock pot, super easy. Now, with most stuffings, you can add more broth if you want it to be more moist. You can let it dry out a little bit more if you want it to be more dry. So you can adjust this once you have made it. But how easy is that? And hardly any ingredients. And then you just throw it in your crock pot, you stir it after it's been in there about 45 minutes, and then you cook it for another 30 minutes more, and you have homemade stuffing. Some of you may have noticed I cut my own hair for the first time on the bottom. I've always done my own bangs, but the last time I went to the hairdresser, I came home and there were big, long strands sticking out all over the place that I had to trim off after I had paid her and gave her a tip. I was really disappointed. So I watched a video on how to cut my own hair. I wanted about 3 inches or so off of it before I went into the winter when I go to Texas and I stay in the warmer climates. The longer hair was just getting to be a lot to take care of. And so I hope it looks okay. Let me know what you think. But yeah, I cut off about 3 inches myself this morning while I was making the turkey and doing the floor in the living room. I like to multitask, and I know they say that's a bad thing to do, but when I can stick the turkey in and it can go on its own, and I can stick the wash in and it can go on its own until it needs me later, and I can do some of these things in between, it really does save me time. And so I will be deboning the turkey this afternoon, but I want to share this crock pot cranberry sauce with you next. This can be stored for up to 2 weeks in your refrigerator in an airtight container. You can freeze it for a month in your freezer and then just thaw it out the next day. And again, super easy, hardly any ingredients, and fresh cranberry sauce. Now, if you're like me, I grew up with cranberry salad, not cranberry sauce. And we didn't have the kind that was in the can. I know a lot of people like that. Sometimes I have the can and I have the fresh. But let's do the crock pot sauce in the crock pot first. And you can serve this hot or you can serve it cold. For this slow cooker cranberry sauce, all you're going to need is 1 package of fresh cranberries, 2/3 of a cup of sugar, 1 seedless orange, 2 bay leaves, and 1 cinnamon stick. And then we're just going to put all of this in our slow cooker. We are going to cook it for 3 hours on high. We're going to stir it every hour, and then we're going to uncover and stir it and cook uncovered for another 30 to 45 minutes on high until thickened. We're going to remove the orange, the bay leaves, and the cinnamon stick from the sauce before we serve. And I am doubling this recipe. I pulled out the oranges, the bay leaves, and the cinnamon sticks. And to tell you the truth, I ate the oranges and they were so delicious. I don't know why you would even need to remove them. And I did not cook it the additional 30 to 45 minutes. I think this crock pot runs hotter, so it had thickened up enough. And I felt like once it cooled, it would thicken even more. So I'm not going to cook it the additional time that it suggests. So do what you think. So there's a big difference between homemade cranberry salad and homemade cranberry sauce. And I grew up making homemade cranberry salad in one of these where you would grind it into a bowl, you would hook this on the side of your table, and you would crush everything, putting it in here, watching your fingers, using something to push it down, like maybe an orange on top of your cranberries, into a bowl. And that was my favorite part of Christmas, is I got to turn this thing and I got to crush up the cranberries, the apples, and the oranges. This was our old fashioned food processor, and this is the actual one that I grew up with. Now I would like to share with you our family's homemade cranberry salad. Commercial cranberry sauce in the can didn't come out until 1941. My mom graduated high school in 1948. So this recipe was one that my grandma made, my mom made, I still make. My kids love it because they grew up with it. It goes back for generations. So I hope that you enjoy this homemade cranberry salad. It isn't hard. It does require a food processor now if you want it to go a little quicker. My husband grew up with one of those hand cranks, only his family used it to make meat salad sandwiches, and they would grind up the meat in there and then mix it with your mayo and your other things that went into meat salad sandwiches. I don't remember us ever using this except for cranberry salad. Let me know if you remember these, if you grew up using them, and what you made with them. Now, here is the traditional cranberry salad. I have quartered 3 small apples. You can use 2 large. 2 large oranges, and I have a bag of cranberries, and now I'm going to just process it all up in my food processor and mix it together. Here are the apples. You want to mix the oranges until they come out looking like this, and the cranberries until they look about like this. And then I add about a cup of sugar and I stir it up and I let it sit on the counter and marinate for about an hour or so until it gets kind of a little bit of a sauce to it. That is one of those recipes that you can make several days ahead of time, and it will just taste better as it marinates over the next few days. So it can make it easier on yourself and you can prep it ahead. The next recipe that I want to share is our pumpkin dump cake recipe. And I make this gluten-free, but you can also make it regular. I find it so much easier than a pumpkin pie, and the family loves it. It keeps really well in your fridge. So again, you can prep this ahead of time, and one less thing to do. This recipe is so easy to make. I just take a can of pumpkin. I use the recipe on the back of the can to make the mixture. You can make this gluten-free or regular, and we're going to make it gluten-free today. And I am going to double this recipe for a 13 by 9 greased pan for my family. Once you have poured it into your greased 13 by 9 pan, if you're doubling it like I am, then you're going to want to take your gluten-free cake mix or your regular cake mix. This one came from Aldi. You're going to melt a half of a cup of butter, mix it in until you have a crumbly topping like this. Put it on top, and then if you want to add nuts, now would be the time. You can do pecans, you can do walnuts, and sprinkle them on top. And then I like to sprinkle pumpkin pie spice on top. And then I bake it according to the instructions on the can until a knife comes out clean. This makes a really pretty dessert. It is so delicious, and it takes the place of pumpkin pie in our house for all of the dietary needs. I hope this video has been helpful, whether or not you are prepping today and you're listening to me, or you are getting ready to prep and you just need a few more ideas. These are super simple. They're things that I do on a regular basis, and they make my Thanksgiving preparation so much easier. So I hope they help someone out there today. Let me know if you have any family traditional dishes that you make that you have carried back a few generations. Those are always the best, right? I hope you all have a great Thanksgiving. Thank you for sharing your time with me today. It means so much, and I hope to see you in the next video.